Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. As always, we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today, so let's jump straight into it before my cough takes over again and my cold gets the best of me. First up, we have almost $1 billion worth of XRP tokens being moved in a very interesting manner that might point towards something bigger going on in the background. The start of the year saw massive shifts in the cryptocurrency industry, with price hikes being a staple across the charts. XRP, which had created ripples in the industry in 2018, that pun was almost certainly intended, looks to be doing the same thing this year, with recent news showing massive movement in the cryptocurrency. Reports show that XRP worth more than $755 million was transferred between Ripple's over-the-counter wallets, Ripple's escrow accounts, and unknown wallets. The discovery also shows that the amount of XRP moved came close to a massive 2.134 million tokens. The first movement of tokens came from a Ripple OTC wallet, with 10 million XRP being moved to an unknown wallet. The second transaction included a 500 million token movement from a Ripple escrow wallet to an unknown wallet. The movement between two unknown wallets was also made prominent, as pointed out by the 300 million XRP transfer. Three other following transactions amounting to a figure of 1.416 billion XRP completed the 7-transaction cycle. This is not the first time that such massive XRP transactions have taken place, with $90 million worth of unknown XRP transactions taking place just last week. The movement was brought to notice by Whale Alert, a Twitter handle which stated, 90 million XRP, $33 million transferred from unknown wallet to unknown wallet. And the rest of this goes into general big movements in the crypto space. But what I want to point out here, what despite the title, the article doesn't allege, is that a lot of the discussion is centered around whether this might be money going to Coinbase, whether this might be XRP tokens going to Coinbase. Because of course, if Coinbase is going to accept XRP on their platform soon, they will need a healthy amount of XRP that they are holding. And between these, between the movements last week and the ones this week, and we know that at least some of them are coming from official Ripple over-the-counter and escrow wallets, there's a good chance that these are going to a major exchange that is planning to launch XRP very soon. Now we have an official announcement from Coinbase that XRP is among the coins that they're planning to add to the platform soon. This might be part of the final preparations to do just that. Alternatively, this could be going to a bank that might be planning to use XRapid, though it's unclear if how much, if any, they need to be holding XRP themselves, because through XRapid all the XRP movement is going to happen on exchanges. Or it could be to some investor simply. It could simply be going to an investor who wants to hold all of these XRP for potential future price increases. But what it is looking like to me is this is most likely money taken out of XRP, taken out of Ripple's escrow accounts. Those have a specific purpose. And part of that purpose is to provide the necessary XRP for other actors to be able to use the network, for instance, exchanges who need a certain amount of XRP to get going. So almost certainly this is the preparation for a major exchange listing XRP. The one where we have the highest likelihood of that happening in the next couple of weeks appears to be Coinbase. I'm gonna call it now. We have a very high chance of seeing XRP officially appear on Coinbase before the month is over. They have already added a lot of coins that they promised, most of them ERC20 tokens, but XRP looks to be among the highest priority ones, because Coinbase is of course also reacting to the market, and XRP has become increasingly important, especially with how much of last month it spent on number 2. It has been overtaken by Ethereum again, but the distance between the two of them is not very big. It can flip again any day. So XRP increased importance in the markets, increased investor interest, and a very strong community behind it. Coinbase is of course feeling that pressure. They have that constant looming question, why isn't one of the biggest cryptocurrency projects on their platform? This looks like it could very well be Coinbase preparing to list XRP in the coming days or weeks. That is definitely my hope. I know a lot of you do not like Coinbase, I understand why, I definitely do. But the way I'm looking at it, this has been going on for so long, rumors about XRP being listed there. It has moved the market in significant ways multiple times, almost certainly. And being listed on Coinbase will give a lot more people access to XRP who previously did not have that access. So I want this long back and forth to finally be over. I just want it to be on Coinbase proper. Right now they only have it on their custody solutions. And this will be very good, almost certainly, for the XRP price, if not short term, then long term, because so many more people who previously did not have easy access to buying XRP will suddenly have that access. And seeing so much moved, not all of this appears to be coming from Ripple's accounts, but a significant portion is from the over-the-counter accounts, from the escrow accounts to an unknown party. There's only a few potential parties this can be. And one of them is Coinbase, and that just looks incredibly likely to me. I hope that is what we're looking at here. Some less positive news about Bitcoin Cash, where it now turns out one mining pool controls half the hash rate. Which, of course, for a coin that considers itself decentralized is not good news. Bitcoin Cash mining centralization has reached a level where just one pool is controlling half of its hash rate. The Crypto Statistics Service found that Bitcoin.top mining pool, a China-based private entity, took over as high as 50.2% of the entire Bitcoin Cash network at some point today. It contributed the hash rate of 679 petahash per second against other major competing pools including Bitcoin.com, Via Bitcoin, Antpool, and Bitcoin.com, BTC.com and Bitcoin.com, different things. And here we see it in a nice graphic. Half and significantly more than the second biggest one, which is BTC.com at under 15%. The notable increase could have taken place due to variance, but at the same time it threatens the Bitcoin Cash network with a potential 51% attack scenario. The Roger Ver-led blockchain project has been criticized before for failing a stress test conducted at the behest of an anonymous developer known as BitPico. Evidence showed that 98% of all the Bitcoin Cash nodes were sitting on the same server rack, which exposed the coin to seizures and security threats. In early 2018, Alex Simons, the identity division chief at Microsoft, found that increasing block size such as those done by the Bitcoin Cash team threatened decentralization more than second-layer scalability solutions like Lightning Network. And his quote: "While some blockchain communities have increased on-chain transaction capacity, e.g. block size increases, this approach generally degrades the decentralized state of the network and cannot reach the millions of transactions per second the system would generate at world scale." And we don't really need the rest of this article. The takeaway here is that as much as Bitcoin Cash touts its decentralization, as much as a lot of its, I have had so many people in my comments screaming at me. And I really mean screaming because they're usually commenting in all caps. How dare I support XRP because it's so centralized? I should support Bitcoin Cash instead. And we're seeing here, centralization of course is a complex issue. There are different metrics by which something can be centralized. But in at least one meaningful way that exposes a real vulnerability of the network, Bitcoin Cash is incredibly dangerously centralized. 51% attacks are nothing to scoff at. Those are dangerous, those can completely ruin a network in a variety of ways. Double spending, attacks on the network, so many things can be done. And here we have one single actor, one mining pool, so one centralized force, controlling 50.2%. That is very close to 51%. 50.2% I believe is theoretically already enough to enact a 51% attack. Because all you need is more than half, and 50.2 is of course more than half of the power over the hash rate, over the network. So this is very, very dangerous. We have seen massive mining centralization in a few supposedly decentralized crypto projects before. I believe for Bitcoin we have 4 actors, and I believe all of them in China, controlling more than 50% of the hash rate. Now for Bitcoin Cash we have one mining pool, also located in China, controlling over 50%. Why am I pointing out that they're located in China? Because with China you have a special situation where it's an extremely authoritarian government, which has a lot of control over companies within the country, and where some people believe that the government might be planning to at some point attack major cryptocurrencies. First and foremost, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, because they see them as a threat to their government. If you've been keeping up with the news surrounding China in any capacity, you know that it's pretty much turning into a dystopian sci-fi film over there. You have extreme surveillance, AI surveillance that is using modern technology, modern camera and image technology to follow people everywhere. They're building massive databases. They are controlling who people are in contact with, what people do on the internet, what people do in public, how people behave in public, which political affiliation they have. They're building massive databases and they're using advanced technology to sort them and to use that data in some very nefarious ways. And of course, the idea of a cryptocurrency that they cannot control can be seen as a danger to the Chinese government. So some people believe that the Chinese government in the background is discreetly working on combining a lot of the mining power for major cryptocurrencies within their country, so that if Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash ever become too much of a threat to them, they would be able to attack them. And I'm not sure how realistic that theory is. I do think there's a lot of shady stuff going on in China, and that the government is completely overreaching in how it is controlling both its populace and business. Not sure this particular thing is going on, but still seeing so much centralization of mining power is always very, very worrying. Because unlike the supply centralization of XRP, which is a real thing, a lot of the supply is being held by Ripple, the company. There is no realistic risk of that for the network. But these centralizations of mining power, those are a real and immediate worry. So while the technology might be decentralized, consider there are ways in which the cryptocurrencies can still become centralized, in which that can still be very worrying. And just keep stuff like this in mind. Chances are there is nothing nefarious going on behind the scenes here. Chances are these are all just people who are mining, who want to make money, and who just run a very successful mining pool and thus control so much of the hash rate. That is probably what is going on here. But the problem and the potential risk is there, and I just want you guys to always be aware of that. This is one thing that you always see with mined cryptocurrencies. That risk is always there, and we still haven't quite discovered a way to make sure that doesn't turn up. Because we can't just limit people to never controlling more than 10% of your hash rate. That is not realistic, especially for a decentralized project, where there is no clear governance. So this is simply a side result of how these cryptocurrencies are programmed, how they're designed. And the centralization, I don't want to call it a centralization myth, but pay close attention to how people are describing centralization of a lot of cryptocurrencies, or rather decentralization of them. Because they're often talking about one particular way in which they might be legitimately decentralized, but in other ways they can be centralized. There are multiple different ways of centralization, and centralization also happens very much on a scale. It's not centralized or not centralized, it is more or less centralized. So keep in mind, the governance might be completely decentralized, but the mining might be centralized, the supply might be centralized. And then always look at these situations and think about how much of a danger that represents, and because some kinds of centralization are much more dangerous than others. Some are much more of an ideological issue, for instance supply centralization, where you can have disagreements about whether you personally care because it's down to your personal ideology. But mining centralization is the kind of thing where there is a legitimate problem, a legitimate danger, and there is no point in distracting from that or lying about that. We simply have to accept that if we want to invest in these projects. I just want you guys to be aware of that. And the next time you see someone who supports a project like this, where 50% of the hash rate is controlled by one mining pool, attack another cryptocurrency for being too centralized, throw this in their face. Because Bitcoin Cash and to a lesser degree Bitcoin are not as decentralized as some people would like them to be. Their governance is decentralized, their supply is decentralized, but the mining power can absolutely be centralized in one or in very few actors. And that is a potential attack point and a potential worry. And that means the project is not as decentralized as they want it to be. Now we have someone talking about Bitcoin as society's best hope for a private form of electronic money. Arthur Hayes, CEO of crypto exchange platform BitMEX, recently said that Bitcoin is society's best hope for a private form of money. The Seychelles-based, I'm always worried about mispronouncing that, BitMEX has risen to become one of the larger crypto trading and exchange platforms in the world. Its CEO, who is known to be bullish on the future of cryptocurrencies, has stated that digital assets will be the new private form of money. In a blog post published on January 3rd, titled Two Sides of the Coin, the bifurcated near future of money, Hayes proclaimed decentralized e-money as the near future of money, describing it as a synthesis on the existing central bank system and our increasingly corporatized economy. So keep in mind he's talking about centralized e-money here. Think PayPal. To expound his theory, Hayes used WeChat Pay as an example. The platform, which is one of the most innovative payment platforms in China, makes it easy for customers to pay merchants seamlessly on a mobile app connected to your bank account. Hayes believes that while payment platforms like WeChat Pay are gradually disrupting traditional fiat payments, a potential issue that could arise in the future is the one of privacy. And a direct quote from his article, "The various mobile payment systems now offered by major players in different parts of the world differ in their details, but in some cases they know almost everything about you, what goods and services you purchase, as well as where and when you purchase them, which can presumably be linked to all the other data they have on you." He's bringing up a very legitimate problem here that, unfortunately, with the technology currently in use, there is no good way around. Essentially, at this point, if you want to use any kind of smartphone apps or have a smartphone, and especially if you want to deal with money, you are risking your privacy. You are essentially giving away a massive part of your privacy, and you have to worry about who uses that, how it is being used. The BitMEX CEO went further by highlighting the access that these private corporations have on customer information, which he says will make it increasingly easy for government agencies to get access to them as well, which could act as a violation of customers' privacy. Acknowledging this risk, he said, "At the same time we've seen our governments..." Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. "At the same time, we've seen our governments in the West, where the spirit moves them, lean hard on our corporate friends to cough up our personal information. Unsurprisingly, the corporations tend to comply with these requests." This is a well-known thing in the tech world that doesn't get as much attention in mainstream news as it probably should. Governments, especially the US government, send a lot of requests for information to tech companies. And the really nefarious thing about it is that most of the time these tech companies are not legally allowed to deny them if a judge has declared that they need to hand over the information. And they're also not allowed to publicly tell anyone that they've done this. So you have these massive companies like Yahoo, like Google, being forced to turn over private information, emails and stuff like that, emails or location data. And you don't know how much they're doing it because they're not allowed to talk about it. And they have no way of saying no. There have been some cases where companies were able to say no, but those are limited. Like when the government tried to force Apple to open up an iPhone, where they were able to make the argument that if they did that, then that would completely ruin all security on iPhones, and then they got away with not doing it. But there's this going on, and then there's of course all the surveillance systems that the US government has through the NSA, some of which are directly tapping into the data from major tech companies. And as far as we can tell, every major tech company is in on that. We don't know if they agree to be in on it, but they're all in on it. There are backdoors for the US government and probably for other governments as well everywhere. As a solution, Hayes identified Bitcoin's decentralized and peer-to-peer nature, touting the ability of the world's most popular digital asset to protect customers' identities while also serving as a viable means of making payments. Bitcoin runs via a network of voluntary, independent and self-interested actors who neither demand nor require any favors or permissions. A few basis points in transaction fees is literally all they want from anyone, and all they're allowed to take. And while the public address of any Bitcoin wallet and its transaction history are visible to all, no personally identifiable information is contained in any transaction, which means that Bitcoin or something like it is perhaps society's best hope for a private form of electronic money. Now, I mostly agree with him here. The thing is, Bitcoin obviously has significant privacy benefits over using something like WeChat or PayPal or even a traditional bank account to send your payments. But Bitcoin is also not as completely untraceable as some people would like it to be. As long as you have any one access point, any one point of information that can tie a person to an account or a payment at any point. For instance, if you buy your cryptocurrencies from an exchange that has your name, that has your phone number, and then you send it to a wallet, that is enough to pretty much trace where that money goes forever. Because right now we do not have the kind of privacy solutions on Bitcoin that can completely hide transactions to the point where they can't be followed. Now, following Bitcoin transactions is a manual process and a lot more work. So at this current point, and this will probably change in the future with more advanced AI, but at the current point, your Bitcoin transactions, for the most part, I'm not saying it's completely impossible to do this privately, but for the most part, there are ways in which a government would be able to track anything you're doing with Bitcoin, if they wanted to. And there might be some ways you're not even thinking of in which they might be able to do that. Because even if you manage to buy your cryptocurrencies without giving anyone your name or address or any personal information, the moment you are holding your cryptocurrencies in any wallet that is on a smartphone or on a computer, there might be some kind of way of linking your information to that wallet. If you're getting a paper wallet and using it at some Bitcoin ATM, even if that ATM does not force you to give any information, there might be a security camera in the area, which might be enough to connect the time and date and height of the payment to you walking by a couple minutes earlier. Like, Bitcoin is a significant improvement in privacy over what we had before. Well, except for cash, because as long as you're not being caught on any, as long as you're not being caught on security cameras, and as long as your money hasn't been marked, cash is of course as close to privacy as we can get. But Bitcoin is the best, not the best thing, but Bitcoin is a big evolution over what we traditionally have in terms of privacy. I just want to hammer this point home very well right now, that Bitcoin does not offer absolute privacy. Now, there are privacy coins that are a lot closer to that. You have to keep in mind, for anything that happens digitally, there will never be such a thing as 100% complete privacy that is unhackable, that can never be controlled or surveilled in any way. That does not exist. But we can get as reasonably close to it as we can and get ourselves as safe as we possibly can. And for that, Bitcoin is a massive advantage over a lot of the alternatives. Because there's no company behind it that is tracking all your movement, because there is no automatic handing over of all your details to the government of every transaction you do, because no one is linking them to your current mobile phone location, at least as far as we know. So, massive improvement. Just keep in mind there is no such thing as complete privacy. Now, I would agree with him here if you replace the word Bitcoin with cryptocurrency in general. Because I think Bitcoin, well, it's not even just that I think it is, it's a fact that Bitcoin is not the most private cryptocurrency. That could change in the future. With second, third, fourth layer solutions that add more privacy to the coin, it could absolutely become the most private thing we have. As it stands, there are cryptocurrencies that are a lot more private, that make it their main purpose to be as private as possible. So if you replace the Bitcoin here with cryptocurrency, I will agree. Cryptocurrency is society's best hope for privacy. And privacy in the future will increasingly be something we will want to invest into. Thankfully, we are getting better ways of doing that. For instance, currently, if you want a smartphone, you're pretty much stuck with having something that either tracks you to a ridiculous degree, like any Apple or Android phone. Apple is in many ways significantly better with that, but they're still tracking you, obviously. Or you're stuck with something that is completely useless, like, or at least useless if you want to in any way interact with the mobile world with it, like Linux phones currently. But there is change happening. There are new companies emerging that are working on phones that have both real privacy and that have all the usefulness of a modern smartphone. We are also seeing more privacy options in messaging programs, in obviously in cryptocurrencies. We're seeing more and more privacy, and that is good. That is something that will only become more important as governments find more efficient ways to track everything we do. And with AI and with more capacities in computing, that will only become more dire in the future. And I do think cryptocurrencies are one of the best bets we have to avert a dystopian future where no dissent will ever be possible again. And China is getting close to that. China is actively taking opportunities and essentially rights away from people who dissent. And they are using machine learning, they are using massive databases, they are using electronic surveillance for that. And cryptocurrencies are one way we can fight against that. I don't think Bitcoin is the ideal choice here, but Bitcoin is better than a lot of what is currently available in traditional finance. Last but not least, a really short story. Of course, Ethereum's Constantinople hard fork is coming up in a couple days, around the 16th, but the exact date is not clear because it has a target block height, of course. And now Binance has announced that they will be supporting it. So nothing to worry about if you have Ethereum on Binance. The Constantinople hard fork will be supported. They have also said that if other possible hard forks or airdrops do happen during the upgrade, I don't believe any are scheduled right now. They are open to supporting them. They are asking the people who carry those out to get in contact with them. So this is just to let you guys know, if you have Ether on Binance, nothing to worry about. And with that, I'm going to end today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you want to read any of these articles yourself, the links are in the description. If you want to follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook in the description. If you like my videos and would like to support me, there's a variety of ways to do that in the description. Anything is appreciated. If you don't want to or can't give me any money, I would appreciate if you just took 10 seconds out of your day, left a like and comment under this video. It really helps me to be discovered on YouTube. It really helps me grow the channel. So if you like my stuff, just leave likes and comments. It's incredibly appreciated. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.